So I'm going to get started with a quick introduction of Leslie. I just want to say before we even do that, what a privilege and pleasure it is to be here with you. Thank you for joining us in a very complicated moment. And I just personally am so grateful for your friendship and for everything that you do. So this is a real pleasure for me to be able to host this conversation.
Thank you.
Leslie Short, for anyone who doesn't know her, which I know some of you don't and some of you do, Leslie brought 4 decades of experience when she created the Kavu Group to advise companies and organizations how to expand beyond their current culture through the diversity and inclusion lens. Her talents and skills are uniquely designed to seek growth through open conversations, conflict coaching, trainings, and workshops. Leslie firmly believes that issues don't go away because programs are in place, but they go away by continually evolving and having a channel to listen and understand the people who are our greatest assets. Leslie is also a chaplain, activist, certified mental health aide, certified mediator, conflict and transformational coach, as well as CEO and leadership advisor. Leslie is also a dignitary and keynote speaker at the United Nations and European Union events around the world. Leslie serves on several boards and advisory boards and is an activist for women's rights and humanitarian issues. She is writing a book, They and Them, Making It We and Us, a realistic approach to diversity and inclusion, which will be available January 2021. And her podcast, Visibility, what is it? Visibility? Unlimited. Launch. We've got a type on here, and it's available on all listening platforms. And I can't wait for the book to come out and to do a Zionist book club event with you. In the meantime, please teach us, talk to us about this moment, and how you feel, how we should be identifying, understanding, and confronting the biases that we all.
I mean, I think before we even jump straight in, I have to say, because I think it will give it context, that so that you don't think Amanda went and found a Black girl that she was maybe friends with and said, hey, I think you do this, come speak to us. Amanda and I have been speaking since last year about figuring out how we work together and continue to build, cross bridges. And, the virus hit and we couldn't do our women's event. And now we are in a new crisis. No, let me take that back. It's not a new crisis. It's a crisis of hunting. And so I'm going to be very honest and very open about what's going on. I personally don't have the luxury to be angry at this time because this is what I do for work. This is what I believe in. Justice is not something that is spoken about. Justice is something you have to work at. So during this time, if I can start with the story quickly, so that I can put it in context for you before we get into what is bias, what is race and racism and all that type of thing. As a woman, you're taught, if you're ever out and something happens to you, don't yell help, yell fire. Because fire, people think it's about them and they look out their window and they'll be more inclined to help. What's been happening is we've been yelling fire and no one listened. So now we've been yelling, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And we still feel like no one is listening. Now I know we're turning a corner, and for those of you that join, you're ready to listen. So I hope you listen with active hearing, not judgment. There is no judgment on my part, but I have to be honest about what's happening and how we can start. So what is bias? Anyone that tells me you don't have bias, now you're telling me a lie. There is bias in all of us. Bias is maybe sometimes not understanding why you don't like something or someone. It just bothers you. You could be as simple, I'm gonna make things very simple. It could be as simple as the bakery. I'm not going to that bakery, I'm going to that bakery. I'm not going to that temple, I'm going to that temple. I'm not going there, I'm going there. That's a bit of bias. It's a bit of elitist, but it's within our bias and we all have it. Understanding when it rears its head and you go, oh, that's not necessary to say that or do that. That's bias. That's okay. Race, racism, and racist are three different words. And I don't like that we're so casual about throwing them around. So I may get some pushback on this, but race is your identity, or they say, they as in the dictionary says how you identify. But clearly I cannot go and identify as a white woman. I could, but I'd be crazy. People will look at me like crazy. So your identity is the color of your skin. If you would like to fight me on that, here's what I would like to say. When you fill out an application or a form, you do not put down your religion, you put down European, Anglo-Saxon, Black, Hispanic, that is your race. Okay. Racism is having the privilege or thought that you are better than a group of people or a thing. So you have all the right to have racism within you. If you want to sit in a room and speak about a certain group of folks and you stay in that room and it's among you, that's racism. That is a hate, a disdain, a dislike for a group of people or action. A racist is when you have now taken those thoughts and turned them into action with your tongue, with your car, with your action, whatever that is. I don't use that word lightly. There are people that are too quick to call out the N word. You're driving, you're walking, I'm gonna say, I know everyone's not in New York, but you're walking across the street and you almost get hit by a car. And this has happened to me. And before I can even turn around to maybe even say sorry, or New Yorkers, seriously, I hear N-word. So here's my thought. I'm not calling them a racist right away, but here's the difference. That did not come from the bottom of their belly. That came from the back of their throat. And so when those words sit at the back of the throat, that says something. It says something to Black people. I am going to use the word Black nonstop. And I said to Amanda, I have never used the word Black as much as I have in my 50-something, not telling you the age, years as I had to Sunday night. This is not about Black Lives Matter as an organization. This is about my Black self. This is about me not knowing I can be the activist, I can be all those things. This is about me opening my door, walking out the street, and they don't care what my resume says. That they see me as a Black woman, maybe not even a woman, maybe not even as a person. So the conversation today is not to dismiss or discard. It's not of people of color. It is not to take away from anything or anyone. If you know me, I'm about humanity. I am about life. I'm about living. I'm about joy. But the conversation today at this moment, at this time, is about Black lives. So I hope you heard that you can separate an organization when we're really yelling Black Lives Matter. If you can put them together and understand how it works, that is great. But be clear, I don't wake up in the morning and go, Black Lives Matter. But I do now have to say in my teachings and my trainings, as I'm working with companies to write letters and they want to post, you cannot sugarcoat this. If you are going to be for real, you need to say Black Lives Matter. Do you want me to stop, Amanda, or go on?
I don't want you to stop. And I'll say for people who are watching who have joined other Zionist webinars, this one is obviously different. I don't have prepared questions. This is not an interview. The goal of this actually was because Leslie and I were talking last week, and she was doing another webinar and she invited me and I couldn't go. And I thought to myself, I need to hear Leslie speak about these issues. She's an expert in these issues. And as she already mentioned, we've been talking about working together on various things in the past. People are saying, can we ask questions? The answer is yes. I don't know exactly when we're going to get to them, but we will get to them. And it just was, I don't want to say fortuitous because nothing about this is positive, and that seems like a positive word, but that we have someone who, you know, was able and willing to help us confront the biases that we all hold, and, you know, is available to do it this week and ready to work with us. It felt like, of course, this is a conversation that we all want to be having. But this right now is a conversation between friends, but we're sharing it with you in hopes that you will share it with your friends too, and with your family members, and that you'll spread the messages and the lessons that you learn from this in your communities. That's really the best thing that we can do right now as Zionist activists. And there are lots of ways to participate in this movement, in Black Lives Matter, starting by saying Black Lives Matter and making sure you're comfortable saying it is a good start, but there's obviously a lot more to do. But this conversation, I think, is so important because a lot of people right now are looking for action items. And I know I'm one of all of those people who are looking, you know, I want to do so much. I want to do everything that I am possibly capable of doing. But I do also know and recognize, and Leslie has told me this, and, you know, all of the Black friends and leaders that I've reached out to have told me this starts with all of us internally within our own social and family units. And it's something that, you know, when we're all doing this work at home, it will spread and it will change the culture, but it can't be about what petitions you sign. Not that I'm saying you shouldn't sign the petitions, you 100% should, but if we want a broader change beyond this moment, I think that's a critical message. We need to change the way we think. We need to change the institutions that we're brought up in, and the system and the culture and the country, frankly, that we're all raised in.
And let me jump in at that point. It starts from within. See, we have to stop saying the system is broken. The system was never designed for Black people or immigrants. The system was designed for a white system. It's just that simple. It was not designed. So it's not broken. It was just never for us. So now we need to change policy. We need to change procedures. We'll get into that or how that works. But before you take on any of that, what do you yourself bring to the table? Because see, you have to know who you are in this walk with us and why you want to be there, other than it's just an injustice. So let me ask you a few questions, and I want you to think about them as I ask, because these are questions I get or has happened to me. Think about it for yourself. I have never been the only person of my race in a room. I have never been discriminated against because the color of my skin. I have never been told I'm attractive for my race. I've never been told you speak well. I have never been told you sound white. And I've never had a stranger come up to you and say, can I touch your hair? I think most of you, I'm not going to say all, I never speak for anyone as a whole, but I'm going to say, I'm going to vote. Most probably have not had those things happen. That can happen pretty much on a daily for anyone that is Black. That can happen in your office. So when you're asking what to do, I want you to walk with us. I need you to walk with us. I have said at every, I think, speaking engagement I've ever done, and it is a Jewish audience or any audience, is that I will stand with you. How will you stand with me? Because a lot of times when I step off the stage, I'm the golden girl, and then I see people later in a hotel on the street and no one knows who I am. So it's not only active listening, it's active within the moment that you encounter someone Black. Remember what their face looks like so you don't mix us up when there's only 5 of us or 4 of us in the room sometimes anyway. It wouldn't make a difference if it was 2. I'm not asking to learn my name. I'm the first one to mess up a name. But remember my face. Don't be so surprised when I'm in the room. I don't need you to welcome me in the room. I'm going to make my space in the room, but there's many others that will not. So be present in the moment and active listening. We're asking people to be accountable. Be accountable for your actions. People of color is not the conversation for Black Lives Matter. Please don't tell me or tell any other Black person you don't see color. That is so disrespectful. Because let's all be honest. If you're trying to describe someone and you're at a party, what do you say? Amanda, brown hair, tall, cute shoes. She's over in the corner. You know, she's with Zionists. Who's Leslie? Oh, the Black girl. She has short hair. You know, she used to be a dancer. You know, the Black girl over there. So let's just be honest. We see color, see the color, recognize the color, and I want you to respect the color. I'm not asking anyone to like anyone. I am not sitting here saying I like all Black people. And I don't think anyone is sitting anywhere saying I like all anything. But what we're saying is, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. We're in a moment that I know you want to help and things are untattered, but please realize the moment for you to realize that has been a lifetime. We have set at counters peacefully. We have walked together peacefully. We have stood on podiums and raised our fists peacefully. We have kneeled peacefully. And yet it took the madness of peaceful protest to turn violent to be heard. I do not condone that in any sense of the word, but I would be remiss not to be part of that conversation, because if we've kneeled and we've walked silently but yet we still have feet on our neck and feet on our back and held because of the color of our skin, when we sit in a park and we look at birds and somebody says we don't have the right to look at a bird, when you're in the Upper West Side of New York City and you sit in a park and somebody calls and says there's a Black person sitting in the park, our skin has now been used to weaponize us. The cell phone is a bonus and a negative. A negative because it's part of the weapon of saying somebody Black is harassing me when they're nowhere near them. Now, granted, if somebody's harassing you, pick up the phone and you call. But to use the color of the skin as the excuse to pick up the call, that's a problem. But yet we would not have the video that we have today, because years ago we had to wait for the news crews to show up and for them to edit what they wanted us to see. So now that you've seen that, now that you're ready to rise up, I need you to not rise up like a loaf of bread. I need you to rise up, stand up, voice out, and be strong. Because if you're really serious about this, it is painful. As painful as it was and is for your culture, it is painful. This is a different type of opening of slashes of wounds at this moment. So everyone says, I want to be a champion. I want to be an advocate. And everyone's like, I'm an ally. I'm an ally. So let's talk about what those words mean. A champion is you are in a room and I am not there. I'm just going to speak about myself at the moment, please. And I am not there. And you raise my name. Have you, oh, do you know about Leslie, or you know about her program? Do you know? They may be good to, let's call them in for this. Let's have them pitch for this, whatever that is. You think about us when we're not there. We don't even know. The advocate sits at the table, hears the conversation and goes, no. We cannot make those decisions here. We don't have that right to make those decisions. We need to have the right people in the room. And you don't worry, I know who they are. And that's when that cell phone we like to use, that's where that becomes a bonus. That is an advocate. You are constantly, we don't even know you working sometimes. We just see things happening. We are grateful for all of it. Now, everyone wants to be an ally. You can't call yourself an ally. The work that I feel that I do in the Jewish community and other communities, I don't call myself an ally. Someone else must call me an ally. Someone else that sees me doing the work and that feels that I am worthy of that title. That is the consistency in my walk, in my talk, in my being. I have to say, the Jewish and the Black community has had an amazing champion, advocate, ally situation. It must be new. It must be renewed. I love you all, but please do not talk to me about Martin Luther King Jr. because at the end of the day, he was killed by a white man. So the love of Martin Luther King, he was killed by a white man. There was peaceful protest and there was ruckus after that protest. And guess what happened? Again, not condoning it, but the laws changed. So if you're wondering why the rage is there and the tears are there and the passion is there, we're tired. I don't know what else to say. But again, I personally don't have the luxury to be tired because this is my time to do the work that I've been pushing to say, you need a diversity and inclusion department. You need to not just fill the holes with the Black person that's there. That's why I started the conversation the way I did. Amanda did not go through her Rolodex and say, oh, that Black person, that's the one. Put on your green top, let's match and let's go. That is not what happened. And so as you are thinking about the privilege that you have, privilege is not always about money. You have the privilege of the color of your skin, which allows you to open doors, open windows that we may not be able to open. That means we are holding you accountable if you say you want to be a champion advocate and wait to be an ally. We're holding you accountable for those things. We want to be surprised. I spoke with a friend and she said, oh, I'm no longer scared about what's happening. Thank you for speaking to me. I said, then I didn't speak to you correctly. Because I need you to continue to be scared. I need you to continue to be upset. What I need you not to be is surprised. This is not the last time we will have this conversation. Bias, racism is not going away, but will we stand up for it? And will there be a price to pay for it? And that is what we're starting to see now, where there's people losing lease in apartment buildings and, you know, she got her dog back, so we're not gonna talk about her, but she lost her job. And, you know, there are things that are happening. Police finally being charged. But we can't wait. There's an urgency for us not to wait, but there's an urgency that I don't want you to have to run towards the fire and not have enough water. Because when I call you 4 months from now, if we're ever allowed outside again, and say, I need a little bit of help, or do you know about this? Or can you share your knowledge? And everyone is busy, then you are here just to put a black box up in your Instagram and not understand the true meaning. I need you to know that Instagram, you can hashtag 30 names. We have surpassed the 30 names. That's the ones we know. Those are the people that we know. And I'm not saying no personally, but that we have seen in the news. We have out hashtagged. Guys, that's wrong. It's just wrong. So I'm looking for you to listen. I'm looking for you to look deep within and say, here's my strengths. Here's my talents. Here's my resources. And again, resources is not always about money. Not that I'm not saying it doesn't help. It absolutely helps, but I want you to put it in the right place as well. I want you to say, think within yourself, what is my added value to be a voice on this constant journey that I now know I've decided I'm going to walk? What is that? And that's where the conversations begin. What can you do? It can be children. It can be a library. It can be Black Lives Matter. It can be bail reform. It can be, hey, I'd love to invite you to come here or there, but realize we have careers as well. Amanda and I almost got into something. She's like, I'm your client. You are now, Zionist is now your client. I will pay you for your time. This is what you do. I thanked her for that. I had issues with that personally because we're friends, but when she said Zionist is now the Cavo Group's client, there was a pride and joy to that. I can't wait to add the logo to my deck, because this is how we walk together. When people see that it's more than just a one-off, that is not just filling a hole. So as you run, I'm going to keep saying it, as you run to fulfill your prophecy, it's not about you, but it is about where your strengths lies and your resources lie, where your spirit lies, so that you can be added value on the journey. Because we don't have the strength. I'm not speaking for all Black people, but I'm gonna speak for the majority, 99.9.1% at this moment. We don't have the strength to pull everyone along, because we really are trying to keep moving forward to make change and make a difference. Amanda, I'll let you jump in at this moment.
I'm just listening and taking it in. I think one of the things that you mentioned that I'd love for you to talk more about is the privilege of having white skin. And I'll just quickly preface that I know there are probably people on the call who grimace a little bit at the suggestion that Jews are white, and that's a whole conversation, because obviously Jews have been targeted by white supremacists for being a superior race, and it's a legitimate, serious conversation, but it's a totally separate conversation from the conversation about Black Lives Matter. I am not going to get pulled over driving down the street. Unless I marry a Black person and raise a Black child, my children will not be, I won't have to worry when my children go out into the world that they're going to have an encounter with a police officer and have a knee on their throat. So I think it's important for people to think about, for some reason, it doesn't always get through to people that this is a systemic issue, that this country was built looking differently at me than at you. And so I would love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it's what I said before. This is not about diminishing the Jewish history, any of that. That's not, as Amanda said, the conversation at this moment. I would love to join and be part of that conversation, because that takes my blood up, but I'm going to stay focused on this one at this moment. I was going to put out, it's Pride Month. And when I say diversity and inclusion, that is gender, race, LGBTQ, and disabilities, and veterans. So for my post, what I had planned for June 1st was the post Skittles candy, took all the color out for Pride Month, because they said all the colors are together. Skittles, as you know, there was a young Black man that was killed over walking home with a bag of Skittles in his hand. I couldn't post that. Not as a disrespect to LGBTQ, but the fact that Skittles right now raise so much. Most people wouldn't think about that, and I understand that. When you walk into a room, and it's not debatable, unless someone hears the sound of your name, or you are culturally dressed, they're not going to point out the moment you walk in the door, how'd they get in? I told the story last night when I did a webinar last night that I'm all dressed up, black tie, hair done, face done, diamonds were borrowed because it was a really big gala. So I was sponsored by a jewelry company. It's a private event. I walk into the ladies' room and the woman snatched her bag from the sink. And I turned around thinking maybe I needed to run. And then I realized, oh, I'm Black. And so you would think I don't say anything. I just move closer to her because that was her issue. That was not my issue. But I was judged there as if who let her through the kitchen doors. And so every time, not every time, but when we walk out our front doors, as I said, there is a different type of, there are times where Blacks feel like they need to put their mask on, the mask at work, because they can't, sorry?
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but if you hear the chaos going on outside my window, it is one of many Black Lives Matter marches and rallies that are happening in New York City right now. And it's like amazing to hear it. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's.
No, I have helicopters and I don't know why I have helicopters.
Okay, so if anyone hears, because it's very loud, but I wasn't sure if it was coming through the webinar. I'm sorry, continue.
No worries. But there is a mask. There is the go to work and not be the angry Black person mask and feel that you don't have a place even when you have a place. But you are, and now many women would say, I know that feeling. But yet, even as a white woman or a white man, you have the privilege to voice your opinion. And as a Black woman, not me, because clearly you know, I think you can tell, I'm going to voice my opinion in the loveliest, the warmest ways. But I'm going to say what I need to say, but everyone doesn't have that privilege. See, I am Black and I have privilege. So I'm aware of my privilege as well. Every Black person doesn't have the privilege to own their own company or to have a voice to say enough is enough. And so that's where you see what's happening now. Enough is enough. No more hashtags. Hashtag, I'm sorry is done. I'm sorry is broken. Because what happens is the system, and I hate, the system holds you down, but the system is not built again, always for growth and advancement. Or if you're in advance, sometimes it is advanced because there is that checkbox of diversity and inclusion. Black person, don't be Black person, woman, veteran. Woo, we got three for one, we're done. You're not looked at as a checkbox. Well, we're looked at as why are we here? And then when we get there, you're a checkbox. So it's segregation within inclusion sometimes. Harsh words tonight, harsh words that not really. This is the reality of where I am. This is the reality of where you are. This is the reality of where we are as a nation, where we are as a society. The question is, how are we now getting out of this? How are we getting out of this? One of the ways I hope you can get out of this is go back and share this conversation with your family, with your friends, with your colleagues. I don't care if you go back and say, that crazy girl kept saying Black, and she told me I needed to say Black, and Black Lives Matter. But I think I now understand what she meant. Didn't mean that people of color wasn't right. Doesn't mean that it takes away from us. It means that right now, she's trying to breathe. Years ago, they were trying to breathe. The children in the street protesting are trying to breathe. What can I do to make sure that breath stays? What is the wind that pushes us forward? Voting. Many on the phone or many not on the phone. I don't know who is there. I shouldn't say phone. Lobby. I know you lobby for Jewish causes. I understand that. But on this side, when you're in your neighborhood, when you're not going for just that cause, speak about the school system. Speak about, is there trash cans? Share filling out the census, but vote. You want to do something? You really want to do something immediately? Join the census. Start calling and texting for the census. Because see, at this moment, in Brooklyn, New York is the lowest census. It was also the highest in New York for the coronavirus. Why? Because the lack of healthcare, the lack of insurance. So there are ways that you can make a difference in a small matter that is very huge. Volunteer for a half an hour. to make those calls or the tests for the sense. Lobby for health care. Lobby for food pantries. Because see, that is no longer just a Black issue or people of color issue. I think we saw in America, food pantries are necessary. This is a different day we're walking in. We are in this together, but we are not equal in this together. And that is what I need you to know. And if you can share that statement, that we are in this together, but not equal together, that is an important conversation.
So there's a question that's coming a lot, and it's something I actually should have addressed early on in this conversation, which is that 12 to 15% of American Jews are Jews of color, including Black Jews. And so this is not an issue. This is not, I think a lot of people see this as Jews and Blacks or Jews versus Blacks sometimes, and which is a whole, we will get into that. But this is an issue that affects the Jewish community because there are Black Jews who are affected by racism in America. Yes. And so this is something, you know, when we talk about working together, it's because this is affecting our people and all people. This is about people, and people like to make this a political issue. If you care about this, you're on the left. If you don't, you know, this is about humanity and justice and equality and a stronger, more equal, more free America, which benefits everyone. And I mean, if there are Jews of color on this webinar who want to jump in, I will unmute you, and you can please feel free to tell us about your experience in this moment. I think that would be incredibly powerful for people to hear from you. And we do intend to do more webinars and elevating the voices of Jews of color. Thank you for your leadership in our community and in Black Lives Matter, and everywhere you are, because you are often erased, and that's unacceptable. And it's something that Zioness is very committed to addressing and making sure that you feel included in our movement. Our movement is for you, just as it's for really, you know, all people.
And so I have, just so you're aware, one of my closest friends is Black and Jewish and works for the police department. She's getting, now let's talk about how she's feeling today. This is not, again, about religion. This is not about politics. This is about the color of the skin being hunted, and just the lack of equality that comes with that the color of the skin. I don't want someone to feel uncomfortable, but my job is not to make you comfortable, because this is uncomfortable conversation. We're in uncomfortable times. But again, this is not new. We've all had our fights and our struggles of what we have for freedom, for the right of speech, to the right of religion, for the right to vote, to the right for all of this. But when the color of your skin is the reason to say no, I'm confused by that. And that's across the world. I know that there are Blacks in other countries that are feeling this. Why? Because I've received calls. I'm not saying only Black American lives matter. I don't think I ever said that. Black lives matter. I don't care where you live. If you are looked at, treated nice English, treated differently because of the color of your skin, that is an issue. But the Black skin tone pigment is being hunted in America today, yesterday, and we are trying to figure out how this stops moving forward. So the conversation is to be aware that it doesn't diminish who you are. I need all of us to walk this together. This is not a separation, but for you to understand why you're walking, you need to understand how we're feeling. And if it's not comfortable for you, I understand that that's fair, but it is the reality of where we are.
Okay, so the next big question that we knew was coming, and we've talked about,
Yes.
is about Black Lives Matter, the organization adopting a boycott of Israel and calling Israel, saying that Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians. And I want to have an organizational response to this. I want Leslie to speak first, but one of the things that I want to say, and we discussed this before, and I'm hesitant to say this, but I'm going to anyway. Leslie has been to Israel. She has been an activist for Israel. She has been a Zionist in every way. She is a proud progressive and a proud Zionist, and she has stood with our community. I will call her an ally very proudly. I actually don't think the word is strong enough. She has stood up to anti-Semitism in her community, and one of the reason that I didn't really want to mention that, I'm mentioning it so that everyone feels trust and can hear her, I think, more clearly, knowing that she has done this work with us. I didn't want to mention it because I have a lot of frustration of people who feel like it's necessary to qualify their support or to refuse to say the words Black Lives Matter, who, like Leslie said, can't wrap their tongues around that because of something 4 years ago that was deeply disturbing to our community. I will say for me, it was deeply disturbing because of my deep desire to engage on this issue because Black Lives Matter. And so I felt alienated from a movement that I think is critically important to the world that I live in and to people that I care about. Obviously, it was because I felt attacked, but it was much more about protecting and uniting this movement for change, and the anti-Semitism in it is divisive. We all agree on that. Anyone who's on a Zionist webinar agrees on that. But before I would, Leslie, I just wanted everyone to know that. I didn't want everyone to know that, but in the name of trust and hearing you, I think, as clearly as I want people to, please.
So I'm going to speak personally for a second. I did not follow the Black Lives Matter movement. Look, I can't wrap my tongue around it. I did not follow it then. So I need you to understand, just like you don't follow everything, not every Black person ran behind it. Not every person, again, the sentiment of Black Lives Matter is different than an organization, Black Lives Matter. Of course that hurt me. I'm over here, I'm called the old Jewish woman in a Black body, and I take that with pride. I grew up with a Star of David, an Italian horn, a ballet slipper, and a cross around my neck. This journey is not new for me. So when I hear attacks, when I watch the temples being, synagogues being destroyed, I called my friends that are pastors and preachers, and I said, where are you? Where are you? Because you need to be standing because they stood with us. You need to be standing because this is wrong. So I just need people to understand that movement that started well, and I understand why it started. They said what they said. I don't have to agree what they said. I've not signed a petition for them. I just clicked on them on Instagram because the sentiment of the statement, again, that Black Lives Matter. If you're confused by that, I want you to remember that the little Black girl you saw on the screen, that my life matters, that my nephew life matter, that my parents' lives matter. I get emotional because I need that separation so that you don't get caught up. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I'm not saying it's not important. Like I said, it breaks my heart. The conversation at this particular moment is about how Black Lives Matter. Does that make you more comfortable? About how Black Lives Matter? So I don't get caught up in the rhetoric of what happened, because I personally do not agree with it. And so therefore my conversations, I frame it, and this is why I frame it the way that I frame it, so that it doesn't get diluted in my message to you, not only this evening, but across the board. And I hope I clarified that. I don't want to spend the time fighting about politics. Politics is part of this. Policy is bigger.
Yeah, I think it's easy for people to disengage from something that feels like they have to be vulnerable, or they have to, acknowledge and, confront the bias within. As we're talking about, it's much easier for them to say, well, it's political, there's anti-Semitism, and to just wrap the whole thing in this bow and say that's the whole thing. But when you have these conversations, and if people don't have Black friends, I know Leslie and I have talked about this, like if you don't, and I'm not, this is not an accusation. We grow up often in silos and communities, which is part of the problem. That's what systemic racism is. But when you are in diverse communities and you know people and you care about people, you realize that this is the lives of the people that you love and the people that you care about. And it becomes so much more than, what the platform said. But I also think it's so important for people to realize, and I don't say this strategically, it's really urgent for people to realize that when you are showing up for others, they will show up for you. And if you don't show up for them, you can't expect them to show up for you. So the expectation that, there shouldn't be these issues in the Black Lives Matter platform, I totally agree with that. And I am committed to doing the work and building the relationship so that people understand why that's so hurtful for us and so damaging for this movement. But if you stay home and point fingers and get upset, you're not changing anything. You're making the problem worse, and you're not actually standing up for human lives. And we as Jews stand up for human lives. It's the first mandate of the Jewish people. Pikuach nefesh, we stand up for life. Life is the most important thing. Black lives matter because we care about life. So I really implore people to find ways to show up. It doesn't mean that you have to do any one thing. It means find ways to show up, find ways to confront your biases, find ways to think about the world that you grew up in. I grew up with privilege, all kinds of it, and I recognize it. And it also gives me a platform to have conversations that we have to have in this country. And I'm one person, but if there's hundreds of people on this call and you all have conversations, and all the people that you have conversations with have conversations, all of a sudden we can actually make a change. We could do something.
We can change policy. We can change diversity of thought. We all need that diversity of thought. So I think this is a good time just for me we celebrate our differences. But I want you to think about, when everyone says all lives matter and all those other things, let's talk about how you live for a moment. Amanda, you just shared your privilege. Thank you. Like I said, I also have privilege. But let's talk about, I want everyone to think about this. When I read the questions, think about your own personal. I am, fill in the blank. My elementary school was mostly, fill in the blank. The neighborhood I grew up in was, fill in the blank. My college was mostly, fill in the blank. My close friends look like, fill in the blank. People in my home are, fill in the blank. People who visit my home often are, fill in that blank. My neighborhood I live in, fill in the blank. The people I socialize with, fill in the blank. And if your blanks all look the same, that's a new way that you can expand out. Now, I'm not saying go find a Black friend. I'm just saying be open to a smile. Be open to ask, is there anything I can do for you today? If you ask how we're feeling, you may get a whole thing that you don't want to hear right now. We're not okay. But knowing the text after Shabbat, I can't tell you the warmth that I felt. I was shocked. And I don't want to say the word on it, but that the text that I received, that you are part of my Shabbat's prayers. I just want to let you know that I'm thinking of you. It was just that simple. The answer back was thank you. I appreciate you thinking about me. I am but one, but we start with one. And where one or more are gathered, we can continue to build and grow together. We will hold everyone accountable that says they want to be part of this. We will hold you accountable if you say I'm an activist. You hold me accountable as an activist. Trust me, you hold me accountable. And I'm there. Not because I feel that I have to be accountable, because I've made the decision that this is part of something that I want to uplift and that I believe in and that I want to grow and that I share. And there's not a speaking engagement, I don't care where it is, that I don't say, I am an activist for the US-Israel relationship. I'm proud to be able to work with the organizations that I work with. But I didn't start it just with them, but they've allowed me to grow my platform. So I need you to know that I come to you from a place of love, from a place of family, but from a place of, I'm tired and I'm trying to breathe. So if you really want to help, there are the ways that you can lobby, you can vote, you can censor, you can say hello, you can reach out. All those ways will make a difference. But stand up, speak up, if that's who you are.
I hate the fact that I even feel remotely like I have to say this. I don't think I have to say it, but I'm going to anyway. There are a lot more Leslies in the world. When you assume that anyone associated with Black Lives Matter, anyone who's willing to say those words and fight this fight and join in this battle for America and for human beings in the country that we live in, holds some sort of anti-Semitism or hates Israel, you're doing yourself such a disservice. It's so disheartening to believe that, and it's not true. So don't jump to that conclusion. Don't conflate that platform 4 years ago with this national movement now to actually address a 400-year-old plague on this country. Don't do that. Don't do it to yourself. Don't do it to the Black lives that we care about. Don't do it to the Jewish people. Just don't. Get educated, show up, meet people, learn from them. There's so much beauty that we can build together, but it means showing up for each other. And Leslie does that. And I feel very proud to be able to do it also with you.
Wow, I appreciate that. And that's why this was important. You know, I saw, we've been speaking for forever. We've been getting it together. We've both been busy trying to elevate platforms. And like I said, we were like, we're going to do something for Women's History Month and we're going to show everyone how we work together. This conversation happened in December on a very snowy day.
Yeah.
And then the world took a turn. But we stayed in touch. It's not like we don't speak to each other or support each other. And it was necessary. It was needed.
And it's just the beginning. There's still, do you have time for a couple more questions?
Of course.
Okay. This is a really important one. From one of our board members, actually. She wrote, how can people educate themselves without having to rely on Black friends and colleagues to do the educating for them? And relatedly, should white people be afraid to ask questions of their Black friends and colleagues for fear of saying the wrong thing? And I know that's a real fear.
That's a great question. So one way, I'm going to say the Smithsonian actually just released a full series, it's free, on racism and bias and teachings and history. That is a great way to do it at this moment. It is up to date. This was something that was not supposed to be released until much later in the year. I don't even know what month we're on anymore, but it is now released. They released it yesterday, I believe, or a couple days ago. I know I posted about it today. It's a great resource. There's a lot of information in one location. There are pickup books from Black authors, even if you just read stories. Here's the question. I think you need to I want you to ask questions, but that's me. Ask me questions. But what I don't want to have happen is an email that came in today saying, hey, Leslie, we loved you as a speaker. Do you think does your company want to sponsor some Black other companies? What'd you say now? You mean a Black small business? They were like, yeah. I was like, you do realize I'm a small business. But ask the questions, especially if it's of the activists that you have bumped into. Sending an email. Now they're a little raw right now. So sometimes people may I'm not answering nothing. I need a moment. But gather your thoughts of what you would like and say, can I have 15 minutes to figure out how I can better be of service for you and with you? And I think anyone would be willing to answer those questions. And if not, then you have Amanda get in touch with me and I will do that.
And make sure you're following Leslie on social media and the Kavu group, because she's posting resources that have been really helpful for me as I'm reflecting on everything happening right now. So if you want to be learning, there are so many ways that you can follow people without bombarding them with questions, and find a lot of resources. And then when there's something specific that arises, you can reach out. But I feel like to be able to show that you've done the work yourself before you reach out, I think is a good idea.
So it's, I see I only see questions a little bit, but at the Cavo group is where all my social media is. THECAVU group. And if you're in the position of a company, and I know we're all working virtually for the moment, most of us, I would say, if you have the power to create trainings, to bring speakers in, not just only during Black History Month, and not only in June, which is the new Black History Month right now, but bring speakers in, support small business, support small Black business. Buy gifts and share to your friends. And ask the owner, maybe, do you have a story of your business to share with others? There's so many lists going around right now with Black-owned business. Etsy is even separating. Zagat's is actually separating so that you know what restaurants are. So there's so many, again, small ways that you can start educating yourself and start reaching across the lines so that you become comfortable if that's where you are. And that's okay.
There's a question on Facebook. Diversity training in the workplace isn't working. I don't know if you would agree with that, given that.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that. 100%. That's one of the.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know generally professional opportunities are unequal and all that stuff, but how do we strengthen diversity in the workplace?
So diversity and inclusion, the reason I started my company is because I get sick of hearing the buzzwords diversity and inclusion. And it is that check box. Oh, we hired a Black woman. We have a Hispanic person. We have this, we have that. Woo, we're diverse. Okay, so you have a bunch of people in the room, and that's what I call segregation inclusion. You have a lot of people in the room, or you have your 2 or 3 that you've checked the box. And the next thing I know, no one feels including. You're not feeling welcome. You don't feel, the new buzzword of the moment, belong. The investment wasn't there. The accountability wasn't there. And so when it didn't work, they go, oh, see, we told you that program didn't work. Well, guess what? It's more than a program. It has to be a commitment of the foundation of a business. And like anything, you have to work and you have to cultivate and you have to curate it along with the people that you're bringing in. Amanda, you're muted.
Sorry, I muted because I opened the Facebook page in another window to check the comments, and it was going to have our webinar feed into the webinar.
No worries.
So someone wrote, do you recommend people take the Harvard implicit bias test to start recognizing their own implicit biases, or at this time, is it more important to start doing the work whether they know the depth of their bias or not?
I will always say it never hurts to take the test. It never hurts to sit down and review yourself. And be clear, I do it all the time. I review myself, my bias, my strengths, my weakness, what I'm doing. So yes, continue to educate yourself, because then as you're doing it, you get to ask questions. Can you explain this? Or that doesn't make sense to me. Or you start recognizing, that's why I do what I do on that. That person drove me crazy, and I didn't know why. It maybe is not the person, maybe it's something else about the situation. So it's great to continue and to take those tests. Yes.
Okay. Someone else wrote, this is a comment, just don't just protest, do something tangible, tutor a kid, involve yourself in something that will change lives forever. And I just wanted to share that because
yes, thank you. Thank you. And that's the conversation you all get to go have now. I'm not a protester. Amanda and I spoke about that. I was like, I don't know what you were protesting. I was like, I would love to go, but I don't go outside. I don't protest. I am claustrophobic. It doesn't work for me. What else can I do? And so do what you do best. Do the skills that you have. That is where it makes the difference, when it's real and it's genuine.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say that I think the protests are really inspiring. Obviously, I do not condone the violence, but they're not going to go on forever. At some point, we're going to have to actually do the hard work of changing this country and changing our communities and changing our conversations and our workplaces and our, schools, all of academia, our housing opportunities. I mean, the breadth of this challenge is impossible to even express. So,
but you can't change it if you don't recognize it and respect it.
Yeah.
And so we're at the base level of just that at this moment.
And it does, and I would like maybe to end on this actually, because it's, I think, a positive note. I feel like it's possible that we've talked about this, so I hope I know it's going to be a positive note. I feel like there's a reckoning happening. In my lifetime, there hasn't been this much awareness of this issue. Friends, close friends that I have grown up with are reckoning with this in a very new way. People who aren't in activist communities or politically involved are calling me and reaching out and saying, I want to learn more. I want to be better. I want to do better. I want this world to be better for my children. So do you feel, and I know we've been through this before, right? Like it feels different now, but we've been through it before with, with Black Lives Matter originally and with other murders of, Black people in this country. So how do you feel about this moment in terms of the prospects for a better future?
I am someone that believes in faith. So I always have hope. There's no other way. I wake up every day and I have hope. I can't live without it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be painful. But through the darkness, there is always light. And that is what I'm holding on to. That there is a new awakening for some, a new urgency for others. And I hope in that bridge somewhere it comes like this, and then we continue to go like this, because we have to do it together. So I am hopeful that there's a new horizon.
Okay, I think that's the best thing to end on. And I hope everyone will please make sure you're following the KAVU group on social media. Please make sure you're following Zioness on social media. Sign up for both of our lists. We're doing a lot of programming. We were doing it during the COVID crisis. And as Leslie said, it looks like we're going to be in our homes, at least if you're in New York, basically forever. So we will continue to offer, I think, really insightful and important and powerful content and programming. And we hope you'll continue to join us. And we're going to send out a follow-up email. I'm going to talk to Leslie about some of the action items that we think are most urgent and most tangible for people to take. We can send out the Smithsonian link, et cetera. So please watch out for that. And in the meantime, if you're protesting, please be safe. Yes. And let's all just say together, Black Lives Matter.
Thank you. My life matters.
Your life matters, Leslie. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.